Hello and welcome to Quiz Class. I'm your host, Ellen, and today we will be looking at 100 questions on the 1960s in the US. Let's take a look at our Quiz Class awards. Let us know how you rank in the comments at the end, along with the answer to the bonus question. Which great programs ran from 1963 to 1969? Family, community, or society? Society. For 2001: A Space Odyssey, what was Stanley Kubrick's 1969 Academy Award category? Best Original Song, Best Costume Design, or Best Visual Effects? Best Visual Effects. On March 30th, 1961, in New York City, the single convention of what was signed? Narcotic drugs, lung cancer, or psychological care? Narcotic drugs. Which U.S. national park wasn't founded in 1968? North Cascades National Park, Redwood National and State Parks, or Arches National Park? Arches National Park. Where did the Chicago 8 trial begin on September 24th, 1969? Washington, D.C., Chicago, or Boston? Washington, D.C. Which U.S. city bid for the 1964 Summer Olympic Games but lost to Tokyo? Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, or Detroit? Detroit. Which country did the U.S. announce an embargo against on February 3rd, 1962? North Korea, the USSR, or Cuba? Cuba. Which U.S. state did the Boeing 747 make its maiden flight from on February 9th, 1969? Washington, California, or Oregon? Washington. What was the first Capitol Records Beatles album released on January 20th, 1964? Twist and Shout, Introducing the Beatles, or Meet the Beatles? Meet the Beatles. Where was the Project Milrow test of a thermonuclear device on October 2nd, 1969? Minnesota, Iowa, or Alaska? Alaska. Which U.S. Marine base was attacked by the Vietnamese Army on January 21st, 1968? Camp Carroll, Da Nang Air Base, or Khe Sanh? Khe Sanh. Who received the first Hollywood Walk of Fame star in 1960? Joanne Woodward, Natalie Wood, or Bette Davis? Joanne Woodward. What was described as a vast wasteland in Newton N. Minnow's 1961 speech? Print media, modern cinema, or commercial television programming? Commercial television programming. What was Jimmy Hoffa convicted of in March 1962? Jury tampering, plagiarism, or money laundering? Jury tampering. Which university presented the Vinland map forgery in October 1965? Princeton, Harvard, or Yale? Yale. Which comic strip characters appeared on the cover of Time in April 1965? Peanuts, Garfield, or the Flintstones? Peanuts. Which ship was driven onto the beach in Ocean Shores, Washington on January 1st, 1965? SS Calcutta, SS Catalina, or SS Catala? SS Catala. Which space project wrapped up in 1963? Venus, Mercury, or Jupiter? Mercury. What was the CCD technology invented at Bell Laboratories in 1969 used for 30 years later? Digital cameras, smartphones, or DVD players? Digital cameras. Which flower is associated with Lyndon B. Johnson's landslide 1964 campaign victory? Daisy, rose, or snowdrop? Daisy. What country was covertly bombed in 1969 in Operation Breakfast? Laos, Cambodia, or Myanmar? Cambodia. Which Broadway musical opened with the first of 608 performances on January 29, 1966? Babes in Toyland, Bells Are Ringing, or Sweet Charity? Sweet Charity. Which Ford model was first manufactured in March 1964? Fairlane, Galaxy, or Mustang? Mustang. Which dance event known as the ultimate high of the hippie era takes place in San Francisco in 1967? Contra Rock Dance, Frontier Rock Dance, or Mantra Rock Dance? Mantra Rock Dance. Which spacecraft flew erratically after launch in July 1962 and had to be destroyed? Mariner 1, Apollo 1, or Centaur 1? Mariner 1. Which ride opened at Disneyland in May 1966? Disneyland Railroad, Peter Pan's Flight, or It's a Small World? It's a Small World. Where was the 1964-65 New York World's Fair? Flushing Meadows, Jackson Park, or Marina District? Flushing Meadows. What Rotary International Youth Program began in Charlotte, North Carolina in 1968? Rotorect, rotor U, or inter U? Rotorex. Where was Judy Garland's comeback concert on April 23, 1961? David Geffen Hall, Radio City Music Hall, or Carnegie Hall? Carnegie Hall. Established in 1964, which national park was proposed after a U.S. politician flew over it in 1961? Joshua Tree, Big Bend, or Canyonlands National Park? Canyonlands National Park. In which state was the first 911 call made in February 1968? Alabama, Arizona, or Arkansas? Alabama. Which 13-day strike began in the U.S. on March 29, 1967? Transport, teacher, or TV? TV. Which art movement was founded by Franklin and Penelope Rosemont in 1966? The Chicago Surrealist Group, Chicago Brutalist Group, or Chicago Modernist Group? Chicago Surrealist Group. Where was the Century 21 Exposition in 1962? Los Angeles, Portland, or Seattle? Seattle. In 1969, what faction seized control of the Students for a Democratic Society national office in Chicago? Journeyman, foreman, or weatherman? Weatherman. What attraction opened in San Diego in March 1964? Sesame Place, San Diego, Birch Aquarium, or SeaWorld? SeaWorld. Which state's governor declared martial law in response to the civil rights movement in May 1961? Texas, Georgia, or Alabama? Alabama. What was the second U.S. human spaceflight program to fly in 1965? Project Libra, Project Virgo, or Project Gemini? Project Gemini. Which soap opera debuted on NBC in November 1965? Days of Our Lives, The Young and the Restless, or All My Children? Days of Our Lives. Who opened the first Blimpie in New Jersey in 1964? A grandfather, father, and son, triplet brothers, or three high school friends? Three high school friends. Where was the Zip to Zap riot on May 10, 1969? South Dakota, Nebraska, or North Dakota? North Dakota. Who was threatened with fines due to the payola scandal in 1960? Disc jockeys, music producers, or music labels? Disc jockeys. Which director wasn't a joint Academy Award winner for Best Director for West Side Story in 1962? Stanley Kramer, Robert Wise, or Jerome Robbins? Stanley Kramer. Groundbreaking on which building took place on August 5th, 1966? Time and Life Building, the Seagram Building, or the World Trade Center? The World Trade Center. Which U.S. territory's first constitution became effective on July 1st, 1967? U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, or American Samoa? American Samoa. Where did John F. Kennedy and Nikita Khrushchev meet for a two-day summit in June 1961? Vienna, Prague, or Warsaw? Vienna. Who pitched a perfect game for the Philadelphia Phillies on June 21st, 1964? Johnny Callison, Chris Short, or Jim Bunning? Jim Bunning. What chemical weapon leaked from the U.S. Army Dugway proving ground in March 1968? Tear gas, pepper spray, or nerve gas? Nerve gas. Which U.S. bill wasn't officially removed from circulation on July 14, 1969? $200, $500, or $1,000? The $200. Which aircraft carrier collided with the U.S. destroyer USS Frankie Evans in 1969? HMAS Melbourne, HMAS Sydney, or Brisbane? HMAS Melbourne. Where was the missile plant fire that killed 53 people on August 9, 1965? Arkansas, Illinois, or Kentucky? Arkansas. Where did Larry Allen Abshir defect to in May 1962? The USSR, China, or North Korea? North Korea. What network was launched on May 1st, 1967 and shut down a month later? Dumont Television Network, AT&T Network, or Overmyer Network? Overmyer Network. Which publication redacted its ridicule of rocket scientist Robert H. Goddard on July 17, 1969? The Washington Post, the Los Angeles Times, or the New York Times? The New York Times. What did the U.S. Public Health Service study potential ray leakage from in December 1967? Xerox machines, pocket calculators, or color televisions? Color televisions. Which Texan theme park officially opened in August 1961? Dollywood, Cedar Point, or Six Flags Over Texas? Six Flags Over Texas. What did Arthur Leonard Schawlow and Charles Hard Towns receive the first patent for in March 1960? Mobile phone, video player, or laser? Laser. Where did the first Arby's sandwich restaurant open in July 1964? Wyoming, Michigan, or Ohio? Ohio. What did Nikita Khrushchev demand an apology for in 1960? U.S. embargo, U-2 spy planes, or the U.S. presence in Berlin? The U-2 spy planes. Roger Allen Laporte, a Vietnam War protester, set himself on fire in front of which building in 1965? Empire State Building, the United Nations, or St. Patrick's Cathedral? The United Nations. Which act became effective on July 5, 1967? Selective Service System, Freedom of Information Act, or Gender Equity Act? Freedom of Information Act. What did inventor Ralph Baer outline at a bus stop in September 1966? The World Wide Web, the iPad, or video game? Video game. Which artist was shot on the street in New York City on June 3, 1968? Roy Lichtenstein, Keith Haring, or Andy Warhol? Andy Warhol. In which U.S. state was Florissant Fossil Beds National Monument established in 1969? Colorado, Montana, or New Mexico? Colorado. Which merger was approved by U.S. Congress on October 21, 1966? ABA, NBA, MLB, or AFL, NFL? AFL, NFL. Which public figure was found dead at age 36 on August 5, 1962? Jane Mansfield, Mamie Van Doren, or Marilyn Monroe? Marilyn Monroe. Where was the Rustwood Park baseball stadium that burned to the ground in April 1960? Knoxville, Nashville, or Memphis? Memphis. Which comic debuted and launched the Marvel Universe in November 1961? Fantastic Four, X-Men, or Avengers? Fantastic Four. Which government did the U.S. support in its December 1965 oil embargo against Rhodesia? France, the Netherlands, or the UK? The UK. In the US, the golden age of what ended on September 30th, 1962? Radio, cinema, or literature? Radio. Which company was founded in California on September 25th, 1969? FedEx, DHL, or USPS? DHL. Where did the last U.S. Studebaker plant cease production in December 1963? Pennsylvania, Oklahoma, or Indiana? Indiana. Which U.S. nuclear submarine completed the first underwater circumnavigation of the Earth in 1960? USS Triton, USS Titan, or USS Teuton? The USS Triton. Which novel's banning for obscenity was reviewed in Memoirs versus Massachusetts in 1964? Lady Chatterley's Lover, Delta of Venus, or Fanny Hill? Fanny Hill. Which U.S. beauty house launched Aramis in 1964? Revlon, Max Factor, or Estee Lauder? Estee Lauder. Where was Sam Cooke shot and killed on December 11, 1964? Chicago, Nashville, or Los Angeles? Los Angeles. Which country's Volta Dam project was supported by the U.S. government in December 1961? Ghana, Benin, or Sierra Leone? Ghana. What word was also added to the title of the Agena target vehicle spacecraft used in the 1960s? Medusa, Athena, or Gemini? Gemini. The Jetsons animated television sitcom premiered on which network in September 1962? ABC, NBC, or CBS? ABC. Which political family was involved in the Chappaquiddick incident on July 18, 1969? Rockefeller, Getty, or Kennedy? Kennedy. What was the Laramie symbol introduced as a logo on January 1st, 1962? Peacock, swan, or dove? Peacock. Where was the hijacked Pan Am Flight 281 flying from on November 24, 1968? New York City, Baltimore, or Charleston? New York City. Which clothing store, opened for the first time in San Francisco in 1969? Gap, J. Crew, or Old Navy? Gap. Which U.S. military equipment arrived in Saigon for the first time in December 1961? Helicopters, tanks, or fighter jets? Helicopters. Who did the U.S. sign the Treaty of Mutual Cooperation and Security with in 1960? Egypt, Italy, or Japan? Japan. Which U.S. musical group had the most total weeks at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1969? The Fifth Dimension, Sager and Evans, or Sly and the Family Stone? The Fifth Dimension. On November 7th, 1962, Richard M. Nixon lost which gubernatorial race? Arizona, Nevada, or California? California. Which U.S. politician wasn't born in 1964? Martha McSally, Kamala Harris, or Sarah Palin? Martha McSally. Which Chevrolet model was introduced in September 1966? Camaro, Malibu, or Corvette? Camaro. What film studio purchased the Seven Arts Productions Company in 1967? 20th Century, Universal Pictures, or Warner Brothers Pictures? Warner Brothers Pictures. On which Greek island did Jacqueline Kennedy marry Aristotle Onassis on October 20th, 1968? Scorpios, Hydra, or Crete? Scorpios. Which 1969-1970 thermonuclear device test was Project Milrow part of? Operation Mandrill, Operation Minstrel, or Operation Mandible? Operation Mandrill. Where was Walt Disney's Epcot planned for that he mentioned in his last appearance in October 1966? California, Texas, or Florida? Florida. What 100th anniversary was marked on April 11, 1965? The abolition of slavery, the unification of the states, or the end of the American Civil War? The end of the American Civil War. Which killer's victims were shot at Blue Rock Springs in California on July 4th, 1969? The Railway Killer, the Co-Ed Killer, or the Zodiac Killer? The Zodiac Killer. Who did the New York Yankees defeat in Game 7 of the 1962 World Series? The San Diego Padres, the Los Angeles Dodgers, or the San Francisco Giants? The San Francisco Giants. Where was the National Reactor Testing Station, the atomic reactor explosion, in January 1961? New Mexico, Utah, or Idaho? That's the National Reactor Testing Station Atomic Reactor SL1. In Idaho. What wasn't a nickname for the SR-71 Blackbird aircraft launched in 1966? Habu, Swifty, or Blackbird? Swifty. Released in September 1969, what was the Injun Trouble cartoon series part of? Silly Songs, Fun Fancies, or Merry Melodies? Merry Melodies. Which fast food chain's first location was opened at 7112 Firestone Boulevard in 1962? Chipotle, Wendy's, or Taco Bell? Taco Bell. And our bonus question, which Broadway musical about a utopian kingdom was used to describe JFK's presidency? Let us know the answer in the comments and, of course, how well you did with our quiz class Einstein Rewards. Thanks for playing, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.